Hi, and welcome to the show Podium. And we are on session 047. And I do wish you're having a wonderful time preparing for Christmas. Not long now. So before we go over to the interview that we're having with Rudi Kennard, I just want to introduce you to him in case you haven't listened to the other parts. So while training as a track and field athlete, Rudi attained a sports science honours degree and went on to become a personal trainer and fitness coach. It was around this time that Rudi appeared as a contestant on the TV show Gladiators, which led him to study many mental performance strategies like NLP, clinical hypnosis, and mindfulness. 14 years ago, Rudi came across an understanding of the nature of experience, termed the 3 principles, and has since then given training in over a dozen countries, spoken at international conferences, on the radio, and served many populations from corporate executives to school children and jail inmates. So just before we go over to the interview, we've started to talk about the area of talent identification and what sort of attributes do we traditionally look for in an athlete, and how actually an understanding of the 3 principles might change that. And in the world of sport, I don't know, traditionally, we're used to going after things, with self-preservation and self-determination and all of these attributes are sort of sought after in terms of talent identification. And I've started to see, well, hang on a minute, we've got that upside down too. It seems to me is we're looking for athletes that have become very good at controlling their psychology and manipulating their psychology and still being able to perform. There's so much more available to us when we see that there is really no need to do that there is another realm that we can operate from, i.e. operating from the source and the divine intelligence of who and what we are as spiritual beings.
So a really good metaphor that people have found helpful is engineers talk about the noise to signal ratio, meaning that if there's a signal and there's lots of noise, you can't hear it. And a good practical example is like a radio station. If there's loads of static and you kind of get glimmers of it, but there's just, that's a lot of noise and less signal. Because if you can hear the radio station really clearly, that's a strong signal and very, very low noise. So our minds work the same in that we have this signal behind life, and it could be what you've just referred to, Denise, our spiritual nature or our essence, if you will. Or that another word for that is our resilience and our well-being and our mental health. There's lots of words you can use for the same thing. But when there's a lot of noise, that kind of covers over this potential. So we can have potential, but it's not realized in the moment as much as it could be. And sometimes when athletes perform well, as within this metaphor, there's kind of, at that time, in that moment, there was a lot less noise and a stronger signal. And so take this metaphor further is there's an awful lot of innocent misunderstanding creating a lot of noise in the system. And one of those misunderstandings is where we think our experience is actually coming from. So we live in a paradigm, meaning a way of thinking, a global way of thinking about something, a paradigm in which it looks like and it feels like the outside world or the situation is the thing making us feel like we do. Because, well, I feel this great because I've broken my personal best, or I feel terrible because I've come last, or I feel bad because of my bank balance, or I've just broken up my partner, so I feel bad because of that. So all these things in the external world look like they make us feel like we do. And what I've been exploring is that it's an illusion that looks 100% real but isn't necessarily true. It is not possible for the situation to make us feel like we do. And what I mean by that is, if you take, say, a traumatic experience, if there's 10 people in the room, if this thing happens, you're going to get 10 different responses. Like a colleague worked with 9/11 victims, and she said one person was so fearful, all they could do was curl up on the floor and cry out in terror. Another person was frozen with anxiety. But another person was clear-minded, resourceful and productive, looking for exits, looking to help people. Some people were somewhere in between. One person felt peaceful and realised if they died, it will be okay. Now, that sounds insane given the circumstance, but this is what the people reported. So there was the fact of the traumatic situation, the building collapsing, but personally, people had a very different experience of that fact. So what I'm not saying is we're thinking up the world. I'm saying our thinking gives us an experience of the world. So our thinking experience is actually the only thing creating our experience. It's not the world. Stuff in the world happens, but we get to experience via thought, which is insane and completely different from what I'd been learning. Now, if it was the situation making us feel like we feel, then everybody would feel the same in the same situation, and we will be completely powerless and we would be victims to circumstance. But as you know, you can read the books, you can, read the autobiography of Nelson Mandela and Man's Search for Meaning. It doesn't always work that way for everybody. There's a missing ingredient in the nature of human experience that is missed. It is not genetics or the environment, it is thought in the moment. Thought in the moment, meaning that our moment to moment to moment experience is going to be very, very different. Because you can have a partner who could do a certain behavior, and in one moment it's really frustrating, in another moment it can be endearing. That's why thought in the moment, it brings in the dimension of time here. So coming back to sport, if you're an athlete, your experience of winning or losing, your experience of performing well or underperforming, your experience of your teammates, your experience of your coach, your experience isn't coming from any of those people or situations. It's coming from thought in the moment. For instance, my nephew is the fastest backstroker in Australasia in his age range. He won a gold medal and he was disappointed because he didn't break his PB. So if you can win a gold medal and be disappointed, do you think thought has something to do with that? Or do you think do you know what I mean? So when we bring the missing ingredient, the missing link, Sydney Banks called it, of thought in the moment, nature of all experience, you're seeing reality as it is. And what happens, a realized implication of this is the noise in the system dies down, because you're not blaming people or the world for your experience. You're not having to do a set of certain things to feel okay. You're not having to have your mind be in a certain way to feel okay. All of this thinking by subtraction falls away, which means the noise in the system starts to alleviate and is a greater signal and less noise. So for me, I think if athletes insightfully understood this, and that could be one conversation, or it could be a year-long course, or it could be podcasts like this, however it shows up for them.
Wow, I hope you enjoyed that. I've certainly loved listening to Rudi. He's so very clear and articulates this understanding incredibly well in a really logical and practical way. So if you would like to get hold of Rudi, you can do that on www.innatewellbeing.co.uk. And if you'd like to get in touch with myself, that'll be on denise.holland@class-performance.com, or you can go over to my website on www.class-performance.com. Please do join me on Facebook, Denise Holland 3Ps, or you can look at my Twitter feed, which is Denise_Holland at twitter.com. All right. Well, I've loved sharing this show with you and this space here with Rudi. We still have one more track to go with Rudi next week, and I look forward to sharing with you and learning with you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.